No one besides Twitter.com will ever ask you for your password. And I want to repeat that because the easiest way to lose a password is through social engineering, where someone tricks you into giving it out. So as I've written down here, you want to make sure you only give it out on https twitter.com, which means your connection is secure. The last brief security point I want to make, and I talk about this more in my registration PDF, is that there are two types of Twitter accounts. One, which is the default version, is public. Anyone can see any messages that you post, and anyone can become a follower of yours without your approval. You can change your account to a private account, but you have to actually physically take that action. And if you do make this decision, and we'll talk about some of the reasons why you might want to do that later, if you make this decision, it's a lot more management on your part. Anyone that wants to become a follower of yours and receive your updates, you'll have to actually manually approve every single one of those people, so it can take a lot of work to do so. As I've been making some opening statements, we've talked a little bit about, there have probably been some terms you might not have understood so much. I'm going to run through some of the nomenclature from Twitter that some of our panelists are probably going to be using in the next hour or so. The first is a username. It's a person's unique handle. It's how you're known on the service, and it's how people find your account. The next one is a tweet or an update. It's a posting that's made to a user's profile with your username and password, and it's limited to the Twitter trademark 140 characters. There's a lot you can do within an update. Within this update, I have a link to an article that I thought my father would be interested in, and the hashtag #ACS2010 to bring it to the attention of anyone else who might be coming to this event. The next term is a follower. This is a Twitter user that has made the decision to receive the updates of another user of Twitter. So for example, Susanna Fox, one of our panelists, receives my updates when I post them into her stream of feeds, which you can see over on the right-hand screen is a list of followers who are following ACS 2010. The next is an @reply. You can see some of them over there on the far screen. These are messages that are sent directly to another user. Now these aren't like email where it's a one-to-one communication. You can think of them like a postcard. Whatever you write with the @ is actually published to your public timeline and is viewable to anyone that can see any of your other updates. And you send an @reply by placing the @, which is over the 2 on a normal keyboard. It's in different places on software keyboards depending on your mobile device. You place the @ and the person's username, and that will be sent directly to their account. The next one is a direct message, or DM. This you can think of more like an email. It is a one-to-one communication that's only sent directly to a user. The last one I want to talk about is a hashtag. It's what we've asked people to add to their postings over on the right-hand screen. A hashtag is one of the features that Twitter users decided they wanted. With 145 million users posting within a week, as defined by an active user, Twitter users were trying to find some way that they could use the search features of the site to find specific conversations that they were having. And they decided that they would put the # over the 3 on the standard keyboard before a term, and then they would search for that specific term. And it would be rather unlikely that a random conversation would be had using this service. So Twitter actually incorporated that into the actual product. It's one of the features, just like the @reply. And that now is actually an official part of Twitter, and we use it for #ACS 2010 to aggregate all the information for this conference, but there's no central repository of hashtags, so if you're having a local chapter meeting or you just think something might be interesting, whatever you put after the # will automatically become its own hashtag. Setting up an account is going to be, it's a pretty straightforward process. It's at twitter.com/signup. It is a free registration process, and this is all the information that you need to provide. The first is your full name. This allows you, and below it requires a username which has to be unique. Your full name could be the same as someone else's on the site. For example, there could be 2 people whose full name is Dr. Smith, but there can only be one person whose username is Dr. Smith. The password you want to use, you want to make sure it's complex enough that it can't be brute forced or guessed randomly, but you will remember it. Making complex passwords is sometimes confusing, and so you really want to make sure you choose a strong password. The next is your registration email. This is the email account you want to use that if you are managing your private account, this is the email that approvals will be sent to. It's also used if you forget your password. So it's important to put one that you actually know. Leaving this box checked will help other users who might have a professional email account of yours find you via their email address. Terms of service are the last thing I want to talk about. Twitter.com is a company that is out there to make money. It's not out there for everyone to post messages to and enjoy themselves. Hopefully they have some sort of business plan. These terms of service define what they can do with the information you're putting into Twitter to make money for them. The terms of service, it says inside them, can change at any point, and they might not necessarily notify you. So I would suggest there's a service called Backupify, which will actually archive your tweets, because if you're really getting into the service, I have over 1,300 postings that I've made to the service, and I want to keep an archive of those, so if I've shared links or made updates in the past, I can keep control of them. If tomorrow Twitter decides to shut my account down, I really don't have any sort of recourse. And the last thing I would just recommend is to uncheck this button that you want to receive their updates. You probably don't. Once you've registered, what are you going to do? Right inside this room, you can send a hello world tweet. Coming from the information systems world, whenever you learn that first programming language, the first thing you make it do is say hello world, let them know you're here. So just by posting hello world and #ACS 2010, you'll come up in our feed. And this is a room full of your colleagues. These are people you'd be interested in following. And we're going to post this log from the right-hand side, but you're really going to get a sense of the people who are in the room. Also, you can use the Twitter search tools to find suggested users on the site. You can search for people using their email account or a LinkedIn account if you do maintain one of those. Going to twitter.com/any username will take you to a specific web page. Every panelist up here can be found by going to twitter.com/their username, and you can choose to follow their updates. And then the other thing is just to participate in the community. You want to think of Twitter like a 45 million person cocktail party. When you first come to a cocktail party, the first thing you do isn't just start yelling at people. You listen, you observe, and then you participate. And these two things below, Music Monday and Follow Friday, are actually two things that were created by the community for themselves. They're not actually Twitter-sponsored things. Music Monday takes place on Mondays. People put the hashtag Music Monday on posts about the music they're listening to get them through their Monday morning. So think about the next time you're doing surgery, you're taking midnight call and you're looking for that Rolling Stones song and you want to share that out, share it on the next Music Monday, and hopefully next year we can have a great panel just on music playlists for the operating room. Follow Friday is the same thing. It's just posting a list of usernames of people who post interesting things that you've seen over the past week. And again, just send that hello world message and participate. Again, we'll come back to our Twitter cheat sheet. You can get in touch with me at Z1G1 on Twitter, or my website is z1g1.net. If you need anything, please get in touch with me. We're here to help and to get everyone involved. I'm going to pass it back to our moderator.
Thank you very much, Zach. That was a mouthful. I hope if everyone walks out 10% of that, it'll be great. One of my philosophies in academic surgery is to make sure that we help prepare the next generation. And the way I think a lot of us do that is working in training programs and mentoring medical students and residents and fellows. And when you have the opportunity to put things together for national panels, you try to include people that will be not only useful to the panel, but also will be helpful to their careers. So it's really with a great pleasure that I'd like to introduce Sani Yamut, my current pediatric surgical fellow. I've known Sani for about 5 years now. He graduated from the American University in Lebanon. He did his general surgery at the University of Mississippi, and he's been our fellow in Buffalo now at SUNY Buffalo. And I just can't tell you how proud I am of him, of not only the kind of surgeon he's becoming, but the kind of educator he's becoming. And he has really adopted social networking to help manipulate the information that we have to share with people, not so we can pass it by word of mouth, but so we can pass it with social media. And instead of touching tens of people, we can touch thousands of people. And I think it will make the children of the world much safer for the next generation of pediatric surgeons. So, Sonia, can you come forward and share your information with us, please?
Fellow at Women Children's Hospital in Buffalo, and after this thorough introduction to Twitter and how to use it, I'm going to talk about how we can potentially apply Twitter in surgical medical education and patient care. As far as I'm concerned, Twitter was initially designed as a way for people to keep up with their friends' day-to-day activity. Unfortunately, this has caused many to brand it as a gimmick, basically just another way for teenagers to waste their time. What many people don't realize is that there's been a substantial change in Twitter's direction and purpose. And really, every time I mention Twitter to a colleague, almost 100% of the times I get the roll of the eye, and they ask me, oh, so you're going to walk out of the OR tweeting, hey, just did a sweet laugh, pull through, and it's time for clinic now. That is really not the purpose of Twitter, at least not the way we look at it. Excuse the typo. There has been a change in the direction of Twitter. People are moving from using Twitter to talk about their day-to-day activity to use it as a tool to exchange and spread information. And with the almost universal availability of smartphones, which allow for the anytime, anywhere access to the internet, Twitter has become a point source for the exchange and spread of information. And this is what we're interested in, using the power of Twitter to help with surgical education and patient care. So as a pediatric surgical fellow, I spent a substantial amount of my time online, for example. I'm looking at articles, blogs, websites, YouTube, and anytime I find something useful to me within my interest and level of training, I send out a tweet with a link to that source. So effectively what I'm doing is I'm screening and sifting through information in the internet, gathering what's useful to me and exchanging it with people who follow me. Now, people who follow me, which includes other pediatric surgeons, have access to this information. So what they do is briefly just go through the 140 character limit messages, which is a very nice characteristic of these things. It's not a lot of reading, 140 characters, and then you decide if you're interested enough to hit that URL to go to the source of that information. So Twitter is a way for surgeons to basically organize this information on the internet and then share it in a way that is useful to them in what can be described as a personal learning network. Another way to use Twitter is for direct communication. So regardless of geographic location, you have instantaneous access to other people on Twitter. And the ability to embed a link within these messages that can take you to the source of information makes this mode of communication very appealing. So you have a question, a bunch of people whom you know follow you, instantaneously they give you answers, and instantaneously you can click on that URL and then find an actual source of information to that answer. So how can Twitter be used in surgical education? There are many ways. Some example announcements. For example, ACS, huge meeting, tons of information. One way to make more efficient use of ACS is for surgeons to tweet out little messages that direct each other to conferences, lectures, important posters, important things on the exhibit hall. So if you look up here,